Hello, America. World. Human species volume nature system. Value nature system. We have been other than, since semi-ancient times. They're breaching. There are proofs that a semi-ancient transnational criminal enterprise that involve legal identities and exceptions. So we'll use the phrase um, intelligence community, but not the way our countries do, because we're going to use the method that's greater than and more finite than, and has relativity, what is our active value, tactical that other than they could afford to have, because they have our system's tactical ulterior, names A through Z, blamed on other things, others ourselves, where and how. The original, our founders are lied about in our faces. How they got away with this simultaneously is recorded too. Ugh. It had roles with slavery and had roles with torture. Hartford Hospital has roles with the intelligence community, foreign and domestic military, leading up to the World Trade Center attack. In that context, since and with the borders, with that little magic trick, playing games with difference. It's not just the borders in our country; it's every country sick, hurt individually, sickly, distinctly, to keep how measured effectively used by a breaching method discern by itself how sickly, non-distinctly, but we have that self-value, right where it hurts every individual through their own, every group difference through their own. See how we have different color eyes, but the same color eyes at the same time, but except for some people have the same color eyes, with the exceptions part two. See how the other species bodies, even insects, have two eyes. There are exceptions. I saw somewhere on television, and one time I saw on YouTube, there's a fish with one eye. I don't know what it's called. But if you examine all these things and discuss it before criminal and foreign influences, as the ancients more probably and demonstrably did, you come to discern that it is showing us to pay attention to how increasingly three ways simultaneously. The extent of its volume we could discern as a subject slash S, let alone one serious like war, which you don't leave that out. The slavery, the roles with the entrenched law bodies as collusions with the bodies they're fighting. And but we just didn't remember. But there was a shared roles with psychiatry. There are shared roles with psychiatry that these countries fighting have. So I put a link to a Douglas McGregor put a video about conflict resolution, and they left out really how we got into World War One, and they have that self value all these years. The experts on it. They have a quality fact sheet nature and the nature of fact sheet nature. For example, I'm not even an expert on what happened with the murder of the assassination of President Kennedy. See, this is a method that employed difference. Our founders told us not to leave out how they counter extorted the other founders, how they were even capable of it, how there were more than 13 colonies. They had to go inside them, pick 13 points to counter extortion, to counter extort, how they were only capable of it because the laws were so crazy against everyone. Anyone who would break them syntactically, that's it. They would be in so much trouble. And worse, and everyone around them. And individually grouped in together that had been the same thing against the countries that were involved with it, while they were sustaining that against the Native Americans. Oh, divide and conquer. That's what they want that to be heard by each age of fact, treatment nature, sickly, distinctly. Where and how, for example, they get people to self-value. Possession of all identities of logic, all natures of logic, as collusions also with difference. So overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the three branches of government, the exceptions tied to them, and the insidiousness of people A through Z collude to prevent people's short words in nature properly regarding New York City, for example, cities across the world. The suburbs were designed for the torture and extortion of George Washington. Knock, knock. Um, And we have not addressed honestly his extortion. See, people who self-value that, they knew that they would self-value roles with titles they wouldn't have had they not been natures who would self-value discorrelation and uses of discorrelation by what our founders left us to communicate, because it is also in nature left the same hyperforensic trail as itself communicating the same thing by ways greater than and more finite than, but as the value of those too. As our founders, would they actually communicate? Communicate about the torture of James Madison too. Marbury versus Madison, because this enables us to show what the courts were actually involved with. If they can't discern that it's at least plausible that and how, in other words, their identities are used, everyone around them, to hide things and make things up, because they've been using all sides in criminal and civil cases. This was actually recorded, but there's a phenomenon associated with their hiding lies. It has something to do with they have all these different countries and the ones fighting in the news. Russians, Ukraine, America, Koreas, China, Japan, Germany. In other words, Iran. There was a boxer from Iran. Remember one of the gyms, though, that gym, all locations, though, have uses of them when everyone says things that they hear through others. And there are confessions with that. And they are relative to, because there was an increasing path connected to people who would try to discern when you are first capable of discerning how the systems are tactically unnatural, how the systems are tactically not the one they are. These are not the actual human beings. Now, little kids know this, and adults know this, but they had assigned. They were assigned, and the adults are assigning self-value, telling the kids to blame other things, others themselves, because they came through sick campuses, and though that adult was incensed, and they've been replacing what is actually recorded on campuses that are filmed 24/7, and it is because there was remote uses of the differences of the hundreds of countries where they share on and off campuses relationships to where and how that difference is by what our founders left us to demonstrate is involved with Wethersfield, Connecticut, which is the last of 13 counter-extorted positions within more than 13 colonies that were still involved with torture and slavery that our founders communicated that they wanted us to get out of. Not just because it was against Black people, because it was against everyone, sickly distinctly, to hide how sickly non-distinctly. They wanted us to address how non-distinctly. Then it's gone against everyone. And then we have the nature that can deal with how things are all sick, things and people hurt non-distinctly can be healed. And that requires us all, PEMDAS. People energize, mothers, diffusion, mother diffusing alpha C. Mother diffuses alpha C the best. Some ways are the best. No, some ways increasingly. The alpha diffuses alpha C the best. Some ways increasingly too, but that's invisible but still discernible. So it doesn't answer the question, because what's differentially correct every way or not, with differentially can appreciate what is actually simultaneously value and the relativity of it, the value of it. Little kid from New York City, boy or girl, could discern fake scientists are speaking about why and how color was assigned to mean other than it did, black and white. When one is, the other color is. The clear is, because the hyperclear is. This is a hyper simultaneous. We have to name it. That simultaneous nature that is relative to these three identities of simultaneous nature. As the individual's volume is. As simultaneously, it is a group difference slash S. And the species volume difference. And so this comes with the value and identity of the word slash value, humanity. See, but we have only heard this, spoken as criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and or negative treatments. Because they have stayed in and as collusions with and for the breaching and the tools, weapons, and screening of way worse. Forgiveness is to discern how denials of this could even be, how they were motivated is relative to the relativity of where and how they have the child campuses used to fabricate audio and video, sickly distinctly from the adult campuses that are filmed all the time. They're replacing this with transcripts, and they're hiding behind the phenomenon of all these countries here, who have roles with names through time, with little predicate acts, with facts methods, and uses of difference, where they lie about passions and emotions, and that is brought up with confessions of different natures connected, including with statements connected to it. You say, "Oh, well, anyone could lie" or something like that. I'm talking about what's true always. The WFSP attached me to fake conversations with themselves, and they're going to confess this. And the FBI director, Robert Luskin, and the people on off the sides of Central Connecticut State University, and they have roles with the corners of people associated with the corners of Route 3 and Elm Street through time, as people leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles, sometimes criminally foreign influenced by the other, sometimes by the intelligence community associated with them, sometimes by the foreign intelligence associated with them. But they have roles with actual predicate acts, with facts, and with recorded conscious uses of difference with the people, and as people used in all sides of criminal and of civil cases, used to lock also collusions with interbranch names, and with lawyers on both sides, and with everyone's family members with that, and with the news at the same time, and with victims and their advocates and their doctors and their family members, and their roles with locations, especially doctors with mental health, and ones with badges at the same time. These are including with military, foreign, and domestic, since they were kids, kept criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, pretending to be patriotism A or B, leaving out the means and the nature necessary for people to get America liberated from people pretending passions and emotions and using all exception nature to hide that. People shouldn't have to get in debates that no one could, oh, you shouldn't say about this or that. In other words, including the branch of government. In other words, how many ways that have no integrity and never did? They were supposed to communicate about how our founders didn't have free speech. They were tortured, they were extorted, and they were fact-cheating, enslaved. And if they found out their real motivations behind the American Revolution, the Constitutional Convention, they would have been hurt. It would have been bad. It would have been worse than it is now. In other words, and if they found out about the other founders' motivations, same thing would happen to everyone anyway. And the only reason they were able to do that is because at the same time, Native Americans were/are doing damage control. So, but when we fight and we're on how our differences have been assigned to mean other than they are, we have to use them to show that. Or in other words, we can't be fighting at sides. We have to show all the morons A through Z at the same time, which is what it is. Not one spoke for law correctly. Not one spoke for what's most probable will cause slavery. I'll tell you one thing, they don't tell you what our founders communicated for us to communicate about that. They still have roles with psychiatry, tactically delusions raw, and they have people that could transverse the earth, and they're speaking for mental health. They're tactically delusions raw. Criminally foreign influence, fact, cheap nature, quality aspects, and nature differentially, where relativity is too. They have theories. Then, you know more than Einstein. The identity of reason is greater than, is more finite than the identity of math, and is distinctly from it, but then non-distinctly too. Math and everything else is in demonstration of the identity of relativity. It's relativity grouping too, not just grouping symbols. This is more so why they're individual grouped and together. It's more so than psychiatry. They're about drugs. They're about criminally foreign influenced uses of databases, federal evidences, crimes, collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, uses of methods pretending other by using their natural differences, the natural differences of their colleagues, also with little magic tricks. So they have some black doctor involved with some KKK themed ones, involved with some people with threats on me over here, identity thefts and frauds with Wethersfield Police, people with the name Smith he's tied to. And all sides of my house, the people have been planted together, and they've been abuses of their kids too. Want debate, get on paper. That's the debate is abuse of me. Because these people with conversations with my teachers behind my back as little punk fakes. Fake come. In other words, I didn't respond from the other side of the classroom when I had no conversation with Mike. I don't remember his name. Mike Demain. He kept repeating that he was Jewish. People would use the word Jewish in like derogatory ways, like a Paul Zano. He would say Jewish was sometimes when I was going to be something with no. No, I never hung around with him. I never responded to him. He was used to plant evidence since he was a kid with foreign and domestic medical families, including ones with badges and guns and gavels, tactically delusions raw too, putting fake things in databases since before computers. So these are people also with prisons and also state judicial branch offices, also state corrections offices, also with conjunctions to it. And conjunctions to that, we have collusions with the same houses with wire crime acts and methods with them 2 times. This is on a mass scale. It uses to screen the foreign bodies and the actual motivations, also preemptively, while they're being used remotely from the past. So you guys blame the other things, others, ourselves. The real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. You also, when you guys were kids, or you sensed others doing it, and you couldn't afford it because you loved someone who spoke for the law, fake, because that's all they were capable of doing. Certain type of victim predator. They want forgiveness the same way the people that committed way less worse crimes, the innocent people want forgiveness. They won't let a quality of fact cheap nature because they're pretending to perceive things. Excuse me, and all exceptions too. They have used them criminally foreign influence, tactical ulterior from how nature uses exceptions hyper-additionally to show us this, to leave the means to show it. A whiting forensics is increasingly involved with all kinds of natures of relationships between the police forms. Well, not even a police form. This is increasingly demonstrably. It's like through the echo. It's like better than radar because they attach me to fake conversations and they deny such. And how they get away with such is playing like a hear no see evil, see no evil. I don't know who invented that sentence or those two sentences. Hear no evil, see no evil. But in other words, it's like that kind of a method where they're playing games and then they're lying about it, but also having it changed for them. Others are lying about it for them. So they're keeping everyone directed by identities of law. And in the same ones, though differentially, some other ways they are criminally foreign influence. See, when we're speaking about black peoples and the white survive, we're speaking about criminal foreign influences. If you deny the significance of a little kid, if you're a lawyer, even if you're a lawyer and a judge, and one at the same time, you deny the significance of a little kid. To discern, you guys are punk natures. You don't freedom, no freedom in New York City. That's what Mike Tyson. I don't want to bring Mike Tyson in because I don't know Mike Tyson. But like New York City, that's the only one I know. With a who could, in other words, I know there's these big buildings, and you can't speak about that. They won't let people speak about how the suburbs were designed tactically denatured, and for fact, cheaply nature, torture, extortion, and uses of the difference, collusions, or that body was sensed through our own, not for prejudice, for uses of the difference. See, the borders problem is tied to where and how. At the campuses, like Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College, have FBI and other agencies and their family members involved with criminally foreign influence uses of elections locations with mayors per their roles of predicate acts of facts before they took oaths, per the quality of fact treatment, truth treatments, lie treatments, tactical delusions, wrong. The first part of the Old Testament, the first part of the Quran, for example, had sane and honest science spoken for the sciences, whether you believe them or not. Both of those books says the only thing that's important is right at the beginning. They say for different reasons, but different. They say, but both of them not distinctly. The beginning of the Old Testament says the only thing people need to understand is right here, where the sciences come, is right up to here, where the sciences come together. The people of the sciences will come together. It's the only thing. That's what only means. This doesn't mean the rest of the book. It means then you debate that. You need the value left out. The value of the value of correlation, which uses the value of sequence. What came true first? So that the value of debate of that just values the quality of fact, human nature, forced as criminal insidiousness nature / hypercriminal insidiousness nature. Now the same thing is with the Quran. The Quran, per English translation of it, English transliteration of it, per English transliteration of the Quran, right at the beginning, it says the only thing that someone needs to do to be a good Muslim is to agree to call the name of the hyper simultaneous, per English transliteration, Allah, honestly or not. That's all you have to do. And it says if they're honest about that, in other words, that's all. If they don't agree about it, that's all right. Then you love them too. The only thing it says to do with killing is if people aren't honest about that. But guess what? It also says if that person doesn't believe in anything about a mosque, they're not supposed to pray in it. So you guys want to put prayer mean what it doesn't, because you guys roll our roles too. People speaking for all the sciences and including the religions, including the gym teachers, involved in identity theft, fraud, slanders, with this method that makes people self-value roles because it's putting everyone in fake words with each other too. People that never have conscience, they're locking the sense and sensibilities of their teachers and professionals and other locations through time. Prepare your mind. So they have the sides of parks also involved with people involved planting evidence. It's also recorded on Facebook. See, the interbranch are pretending passions and emotions because they've been planting evidences as collusions while being used and having been used remotely, differentially. Increasingly not wanting to, but increasingly collusion anyway. And how that's maintained, the outcome /S, you have to observe was actually recorded with them forging and switching names as times in sequences, and while putting fake things into databases, while pretending motivations, and while it is apparent other because those are also in play. Screens. And it's not the motivations that are real, too. The truths are being used for lies, where they get a lot of money for dealing with other countries. A bunch of people involved with Joshua Stryker and Eric and a whole bunch of people tied to people on my street involved with predicate acts with the phones and confessions of Weathersfield police with their names and with the name Cololo. Per Officer Sullivan, who was one of the ones involved with Officer McGee's switching names. And they say they have one. That's how they make confessions and threats, because they have three of them involved with different police reports, falsified, and rolls with threats on my street, with guns and bug spray and overt criminal enterprises and people interculturally themed and intraculturally themed. So there are Italian people that have been involved with identity thefts against Italians. There are Irish people against, etc. This is a game to keep the difference in the fake sides where it counts, where we are fact-checking nature about the clear/hyperclear fake. Criminally foreign influence cannot defend itself pretending other and afford to protract. So afford to be the short words and or the nature proper at any time and instance at locations A through Z. So it made roles with a singular identity ground location. /S uses. The /S part, while it was protracting, what really made Native Americans fight with Native Americans. And where that counts is where and how they were fighting as factory nature. Because that's where the relevation, not because now the physical conflicts, that's damage control. In other words, even if someone wins a war or whatever like that, you don't get right what started the world wars, which played this game from the beginning. Suits and ties, counters to them, exceptions as collusions, one of right. They cannot defend their logic and afford to protract short words. Our founders had to counter-extort our other founders as increasing value to reason. You're going to watch how they have read people with ink blot. Oh, what do you think about this ink blot? Do you see anything there? Get down. Get them on paper. Get them on paper in one name. I want the guy with this name, involved with this Christina Sioka and the people on Church Street, all along Main Street through time. Has something to do with Daryl Chandler and people on. I don't know. He's got family members. I don't know in the intelligence community. Has something to do with food bag and their role with Rocky Hill locations and like apartment or what is it? Apartment people with apartments and hotels and motels. All forms of police forms and as families involved with the singular polices, with criminally foreign influence, foreign and domestic military used remotely as the people involved with these games with difference. I caught them at corners of streets now. You have to hear, follow the mandated law. They can't speak about behavior honestly. They get away with it because this is all the only three branches of the government is fake integrity by that. This is in every modern country. I forgot about the conflict resolution plan. It's called pantheism / hyperpantheism. It's led by what is actually discernible. That identity of hyper simultaneous and other scientific means to discern. Things hyper additional while we're appreciating where how our experts on each of the sciences on the religions, they're involved with a shell game. Criminally foreign influence, nature, quality of fact, human nature, force. They can't defend itself and afford to have discern what people need to do. We're not debate with people about the rest of the Quran or the Old Testament when it says all we need to know is right there. That's what it is. Only right there we need to know. You guys want to keep the whole world sick fake and keep fake games, like with the classrooms. Oh, well, see, it's too sensitive to bring about slavery. That's why we talk about it this way. That's what's making the problem. You're as the criminal in his nature. Our founders told us they want nothing to do with slavery. Oh, well, that's not the evidence. What's your evidence? I told them my evidence. Don't carry it around with me. Our founders had to counter extort the other founders. And we learn these things in notes. So they're playing games. Get on paper. I want them on paper. They have rules with all kinds of sick natures of overt criminal enterprises with their patients and their family members and their uses of location /s. Don't forget that's additional to this, and with foreign bodies involved with these same names and connections between them at every campus I went to, and their uses of pretending it's personal with them. They brought this up. Man, their descriptions, forget about it. You guys have some sick people. Follow how the people, the religious nutbags, have been using the locations involved with their roles with identity thefts and frauds, getting in people's businesses, punk fakes, putting fake motivations with sick groups, including overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and people A through Z with the logic in place of what our founders communicated and to be for themselves and for ourselves at countries A through Z. So all we have to do is have the countries with weapons and all this junk. Keep it real. What's actually recorded shows their uses of our names and the phenomenon of the West. What does the West mean? It means when something else. In other words, and everyone's translating this stuff. In other words, the quality of fact, human nature, and the motivations layering. It's being used to cover what our founders A through Z. I'm not supposed to put words for Mao, but we're supposed to understand that already before Mao was born, before our founders were born, a breaching method had already forced names A through Z, all groupings of humanity, even though wanted by humanity, for means and assigned to mean and be additional tactical terror from how it wants and needs us. Or it forces away from here, least of Hadith. Not death, force-based nature transfer, forced especial difference transfer. Being an individual, that's where a special difference makes more of itself. Any grouped plan or nature of thing that doesn't value the smallest finite detail, therefore individuals owe their rights. See, the descriptions are in it. In other words, the nature of defenses of themselves with fact, human nature, quality aspects of nature. This is what it was, is in play. Oh boy. So in other words, please. There's a Colonel McGregor, his YouTube channel. I put a link to it and the information section. If one of our countries or anybody, even individual, we'll just keep stacking means. And just a singular agreement. Someone will have to, in other words, we could just, all they have to do, Iran, Turkey, America, China, Russia, India, everyone else with nuclear weapons. We all agree I'll donate to you guys. Pantheism / hyperpantheism, but through you to the other countries, but through you guys. and girls, and ladies, and gentlemen. So it could be, in other words, you guys can have you can have a new means out of nowhere. So there's no excuses too. Because this also employed again the difference between the interbranch criminally foreign influence, overt criminal enterprise, private ones, and the insidiousness of people A through Z. This is timed uses of location slash S, where it has descriptions of each other involved with this little shell game slash S, all directions. So people Hartford Hospital recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There are people with the name D. Simone and Casper who are involved with also people I don't know the names of. They know my name with tied to the Dillon family, Kevin Dillon, and Annie Dillon, and how she had switches the difference between that. They also have roles with courts forging and switching names, and names on off the World Trade Center and on off the Ninth Circuit Court next to it, leading up to it long term, in that short term, and since. And they recorded themselves this on Facebook. Then they flipped out and had fake reactions. They influenced the Facebook, but in some ways Facebook influenced them too, and the difference of that was used. And the difference of it was, this is how it's using, this is how volume science actually works. Not the way the computer is, then it works hyper additionally from the ways computers use, like the value of sequence, the value of what is simultaneous, the value of what is identity of value slash aggression, as a quality of diffusion. I never learned it that way, but that's what we learn. Because that's why that's where everything that's where everything is. So we have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed the identities of speaking for war on all sides. They are prevented free speech. They have to follow orders and things like that in nature. They came through schools though that were criminally foreign influence. So there are excuses that simultaneously we can make for everyone, but there was no excuse to have suburbs that were designed before cars and before our founders were born. And there's no excuse to force a quality nature of debate that any longer forbids discern how and why our founders had to counter extort the other founders, and how and why the breaching method set it up so we would either not say nothing or blame other things, others, ourselves wrongly, exactly the way it needed, even when we were doing it correctly. When humanity was blaming, when they do it wrongly. I want to give you, I forgot the grade, but I thought, in other words, that's will mean stack that way. This uses lists. This will come with the ancient gaming system, and we can make, see, our countries have spots, thank God, already connected, because we're supposed to be unity. We're supposed to be independent though, but tactical terrorism, we have people allowing the discernment of, as overt criminal enterprise, private ones, and insidiousness, criminal insidiousness natures as the interbranch ones. They have predicate acts with facts methods. They have roles with psychopaths with databases and fake motivations, planting fake evidences at crime scenes with killers and child abusers. In the background, they're getting away because they're pretending things were only because of corrections and things like that. They're planting evidences at crime scenes. They're planting roles. You're planting roles. So get out of the way, Americans, from disbelief, because you have to jump in, because otherwise only the people they're going to leave, people who agree with people. It's not agree or follow. We have to get the in other words, there's predicate acts I'm reporting to you, and other people report acts, predicate acts, murders, type things, uses of them, and people lie about it in the background. relative to the roles or uses of locations. Y'all are so stupid in the news with culture, with sexual differences, with words like pronoun. This preaching method has them measure and maintain. They can't speak about American history. They can't teach each of the sciences correctly. They can't have discern properly what a predicate is. Same reason law can't have discerned properly what a predicate act is, because they grouped criminal enterprise as wrong and self-value roles with it as criminal and seditious natures of collusions, even when correctly, even when they did it correct with sick groups. They report their sick groups through CNN sources, MSNBC sources, and Fox News sources, not just America's leaders. Other countries have problems with the people coming from the borders. Not just for this preaching method uses difference and roles self-value tactical terror from how nature uses difference. Don't forget. We could have, in other words, what designed the suburbs tactically to nature? Who denies that have inherent active aggressive affection, nature quality, ethics, and nature proofs of it? So we have to clear the board with these people because while they're delaying response in the background, that's what was tied to this. So something to do with Walker Hill Road and people with foreign and domestic military at Central Connecticut State University, tied to a Joshua Stryker and a Mark Violet and people with the name Casper and other people like and involved on Hartford Hospital with foreign and domestic families with child abusers, people with shipping locations involved with FBI and other agencies and military leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense. Criminally foreign influence uses of delusions wrought types of experts on sciences and religions. Again, that's the proofs. So get them on paper and I'll show you guys how to end wars. Because this is leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense. And get the Oliveri family on paper, too. The ones at the corner, involved with the corners of Elm Street and Weathersfield and Rocky Hill, with the names on my streets involved with predicate acts with them. And this Joshua Julian. I never seen it. I don't know Eric Oliveri, except for his roles planting identity theft, fraud, slander, and fake motivations, and federal evidence as crimes of people on off the state judicial branch offices, also at other locations, roles with this, and with names, intelligence locations next to the campuses in Hartford, as collusions with people next to the campuses at Central Connecticut State University, as people involved with campuses, with placements on the campuses and at locations next to it, where their syntax nature is used to leave out details and make them up and describe things, that's measured in May 10, where how the correlation needs to use where people A through Z get in the way of what is true always and how they got away with it. In other words, how could they even defend their convictions by the law and the nature of the law? Regarding what happened with January 6th, leaving out what Washington, D.C. never stopped being, never was liberated yet from that breaching method they're forcing collusions with. These countries that are killing each other have collusions with prisons and with their state offices. They're the roles together. They can't defend themselves and us at the same time. They can't defend their uses of religion, criminally foreign influence, tactical terror from how they were asked to be defended by their own people, and the difference between that and the people attacking them. They need to use attacks for defenses of that syntax. Well, I was saying attack for this reason, because they need the high sequence shifts, roles with the wire crime acts and methods, where they pretend not to hear any people and change what people say, fake transcripts with the interbranch at phone locations, as roles with WTNH sources that are FBI and other agencies on off their location, planting fake emails. Has something to do with their roles with planting evidences at corners of streets and next to crime scenes, to preemptively too, and pull after it to hide that by lying about the outcomes of cases and lying about conversations about cases and stuff like that, little artistic ways. Then other investors can look at, oh, well, that was there. I thought that. Get down. Or gather around. So more World Trade Center predicate acts. I'm speaking about actual acts, not theory here. So people involved with the World Trade Center attack have a whole bunch of different countries that fight with each other. Meanwhile, they use the crime methods against their own people by pretending people, telling people to say that others made theories. Oh, they speak gobbledygook. Nonsense. They just make an extended sentence that no one will take the time to listen to. In other words, vaccines, get them onto paper. So in the Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have family members, intimate ties involved with foreign and domestic military, also other intelligence people involved with West Hartford locations before the World Trade Center attack. As people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with all sides of campuses and all sides of the community center in Wethersfield through time, involved with judges and prosecutors, also involved with planting evidences on Trinity College and CCSU with this Joshua Stryker, and people involved with the corners on Griswold Street has something to do with that. They make confessions non-verbally with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and the Witness Protection Program is also involved with this. So let's get them on the paper. Don't stop scaring the people of Wethersfield and get the coward police and courts to one name and sequence. Let's go, Wethersfield Police, State Police, get on paper with this Bob Chase. Has more people involved with the principal child abuser, with you guys interstates, with this Ray Cololo, and involved also with a Phil Cololo, Bob Chase, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed involved with you too. And Eric Jensen also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with people all along Route 3 and at spots with corners and streets involved with that, names involved with that, who have been planting evidences on all sides of my house with the Wethersfield Police and the names with other departments and other police forms that have timed roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and intercultural and intracultural families at campuses and between them, and where and how they're involved with fake conversations with me by others, and they'll tell you this themselves. So you have to get them on paper because some other people are pretending other, and they change things and they hid things. In other words, and so please get them on paper, one name and sequence. Let's go, chop chop. Let's go. Pick one name and sequence. There are more than 3 people involved with 3 different guys who pretended to be the name McGee. Now there are men and women also with the first one who are involved with Rocky Hill campuses. That's something the roles with the Morrow's Market and the family members. And there's a Paul DeMorrow, and there are other DeMorrows involved with the all along Route 3 and all along on all sides of the campuses, intercities, on Central Connecticut State University with the FBI and other police forms, state police, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, foreign and domestic medical families involved with child offenders, sexual, medical, judicial, prosecutorial, people with the corrections offices, people with the World Trade Center, criminally foreign influence. They also have roles with people with Scalora, with home break-ins, high, and relative roles with identity thefts and fraud, slanders. There's someone with a different name asking me about a Shane on YouTube. That might have been one of the Joe DeMorals involved with the FBI and the other police forms in Rocky Hill and Wethersfield Police. People on my street involved with a Mr. Abruzzi. I had a 5th grade teacher named Mr. Abruzzi, who's also involved with people involved with uses of the kids, the principals, to make them involved with the furtherance of predicate acts against kids at other campuses tied to little fake things put in their campuses. And these are also preventing the right qualities of teachers and natures of teachers from being. But often and preemptively, too, because how they're using and have used the locations criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. In other words, the same people involved with the wire crimes also have roles with the Whiting forensics at those locations, Elm Streets, in Weathersfield and Rocky Hill. And that's years before the Mazzucato family had a bakery there. A police chief Cintron was involved with people with a name Colella with that corner, and with people with the name Mayano with that corner, involved with predicate acts with facts, identity theft, fraud, fake motivations planting too, and hiding what came first, attaching little kids to fake locations too, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people, which is increasingly relevant because they're being and have been used remotely, where they're locked into sides self-valued with the overt criminal enterprise, and private one has to do with where they get names on all sides of criminal civil cases. The difference between everyone next to everyone, family members, all kind of ways too. All natures of investigations, investigators. And, where and how they have readings of descriptions of how things unfold with courts. They're living out exceptions, exception nature proper. So follow mandated law for your branches of government. If they can't follow them for themselves, Americans in other countries, if one person takes me anywhere seriously, we'll get these countries to agree. Israel will stop bringing in people because they're tactically delusions. All sides are tactically delusions wrought regarding their treatments of the value of religion, while simultaneously they have roles the way they did with psychiatry tied to the courts, tied to the value of what caused World War I and II, and was hiding through the fake sides roles. But this is the foundation of psychiatry, still in our faces, criminally foreign influence, owing more money for healthcare damages and corruption. They have collusions with forcing nature roles because these are little punks with little fake games. With perception shown to it by the breaching method. Okay, thank you. Have a great night. Vaccine.